Hello, Mr. President. We have been assigned by the people in the federal government to give you a briefing on the population and settlement distribution in North America. For this, we have covered not the United States, but we have covered Canada, Greenland, and Mexico. These are three different regions that have varying levels of population, and you will be able to see that they have very interesting distributions, and that many of them follow closely along their own borders, but also have some interesting large cities within them.
Indeed, and we know your time is valuable, Mr. President, so we'll get right into the countries. First of all, we have Canada, and much of the population, as you can see, is concentrated near the US border. In fact, it's roughly 80 to 90% are within the first 100 miles of the US border. And this aligns very well with the average climate of Canada. Warmer weather is brought in throughout the year along the US border. Obviously, as you go more north, it becomes colder. And this region in Alberta and Saskatchewan is also warmer throughout the year. And those colder regions up in the north, you can see there are cities up there with fairly moderate population densities. Those are usually inhabited by various indigenous peoples that have lived there for hundreds of years. And there's actually been a recent increase in the number of indigenous people living in urbanized areas, such as these more densely populated cities like Edmonton, Toronto, Ottawa. And so Canada has been seeing an increase in those indigenous peoples in those cities.
Next, we'll have Mexico.
And Mexico has a much larger population. Canada had a population of 41 million. Mexico has a population of roughly 132 million people. And unlike Canada, where many of the cities were concentrated against the US border, much of Mexico's population is in central Mexico. There's a bit in the west and down south, but the majority of the population is in central Mexico. Mexico City is incredibly important to the country as a whole, not only because it houses almost a sixth of the total population of Mexico, coming in at around 25 to 26 million people, but it's also the primate city of Mexico, and that means that it's twice as large as the next largest city, both in population and in economics as well. And there is actually a much larger concentration of indigenous peoples in the high density urban areas, especially when compared to Canada. The population in central Mexico used to be purely indigenous peoples, and then as it was colonized by the Spaniards, they colonized in basically the same areas. And so there's a remnant of indigenous peoples that still live in central Mexico, though the highest density is down in South and West Mexico. And migration is a big topic when it comes to Mexico, mostly for immigration to the US. Now, while immigration from Mexico is largely to the US, about 80% of all immigrants from Mexico head to the US. Mexico actually receives a net positive in population growth when it comes to migration. So there are actually more people immigrating into Mexico than out of Mexico. And something interesting about that as well is, although the people coming in do outnumber the people leaving, Mexico receives a large amount of remittances from those who have left, making up almost 4% of their GDP.
And now finally we have Greenland. As you can see, Greenland is very sparsely populated to the other two countries we mentioned, at only around 50,000 people. Most of it is on these borders, mostly on this west coast facing Canada. And that is mainly probably because Canada is a main trading partner of them. The capital city of Nuuk has about 18,000 residents, and this is easily the largest city in Greenland. It more than doubles the next largest city, and then as well as the most of the cities are on that west coast as well. The east coast has a little bit of population down in this city over here, but it's mainly tourism and other things like that. Whereas this is where the actual residents mainly live. And then there is one research station right in the middle of the country called Summit Camp, and it's an example of several settlements in the country that are very small and have less than like 20 people or so. This map actually contains all of the cities on the map because there are so few of them. And then finally, if we want to drill into Greenland, like has been discussed lately for oil, there is some oil under the ice, but the ice is about a mile thick, and so the best way to do it will probably be offshore from the east coast. That is Greenland, and that is the countries of North America outside of the United States.
Mm-hmm.